This episode of Founders Unfiltered is brought to you by Thompson Hine. Thompson Hine's New Ventures Group represents high-growth companies of all sizes in the technology, healthcare, life sciences, consumer product, media, and medical device industries, and a full range of the angel, venture capital funds, corporate innovation groups, and economic development organizations that invest in them. Instead of a confusing hourly rate-based model, the team at Thompson Hine uses its quick launch platform to offer menu-based pricing to help startups grow their teams and take on outside investors. For more information, please visit thquicklaunch.com. Hello and welcome to Founders Unfiltered. I am your host, Freddie Coffey, and today I'm here with Dr. Daniel Gurman, founder of orthobrain, a digital orthodontics platform that helps dentists integrate orthodontics into their practices. Before launching orthobrain, Dr. Gurman was a practicing and award-winning orthodontist, educator, and speaker. And Dr. Gurman and the team at orthobrain just closed a $9 million fundraising round led by Care Capital, a Hong Kong-based dental care investor, and also including investments from Jumpstart and Jobs Ohio. Dr. Daniel Gurman, welcome to Founders Unfiltered.
Thank you so much for having me. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you.
So I'm beyond excited to sit down with you and talk about orthobrain and your journey from an orthodontist to a tech giant. But before we do all that, I just want to thank you for the opportunity for me to upgrade my wardrobe, because I bought my first real bow tie today. This isn't a clip-on or anything like that. And after a series of attempts and multiple YouTube tutorial videos, I learned how to tie it so that we could match today.
Well, Freddie, I must tell you, you look terrific. I hope that this level of dressing up for the occasion is sticky and that you carry it forward.
That's
proud
good.
Of you. You did a great job.
I appreciate that. And I was really fishing for a compliment there. So thank you for feeding my ego.
My pleasure.
I can't wait to hear more about orthobrain and where you are, kind of post fundraising. But let's start with the problem itself. You know, a lot of technologies are born out of this desire to solve a nagging pain point. Tell me about the problem that orthobrain seeks to solve, and how that motivated you to develop the platform.
It's an excellent question, and the landscape around orthodontics has really changed dramatically from the time that I first became an orthodontist back in the 80s until now. Back in the 80s, we always thought of orthodontics as being elective, something that wealthy people could do just for the heck of it, so they would look a little bit better. But recently, we found out that your peers rate you as less intelligent, less likely to succeed, and you are more likely to be bullied when you don't have a good smile. You may be astounded to know that you're even rated as being less trustworthy. That's a serious problem, because that really gets in the way of people having the opportunity to succeed. There are so many people on our planet that haven't been afforded the opportunity to have orthodontics. Motley Fool had done some research for a different company and found that there are over 500 million people right now in need of orthodontics globally. So it's a huge market. You might say, well, why doesn't everybody just go to the orthodontist? But wait, there aren't enough orthodontists. So the problem that we want to solve is the access and the affordability to orthodontics. In wealthy communities, you're 15 times more likely to have orthodontics. In most of our country, we don't even have an orthodontist. 65% of the counties don't have an orthodontist in the US, and there are entire countries that don't have orthodontists that are specially trained. So it's a huge problem. The demand has even gotten greater, Freddie, over the past 2 years during the pandemic. We'll call it the Zoom 6, are in front of everybody, and they're much more sensitive. So the demand for orthodontics is increasing. The amount of orthodontics being performed has probably doubled in the past 8 years or so. And orthodontists can't solve that problem. We can't solve the accessibility and the affordability. And so there have been some movements in the direct-to-consumer market, and And in my opinion, it came out a little bit too soon. We need to have a doctor involved. So OrthoBrain is out there to solve the lack of access and affordability of orthodontics. And we want to give everybody the opportunity to succeed in life. And a smile is an essential part of that, according to the research.
So the lack of orthodontists in various regions and things like that prompted you to develop this system to serve dental practitioners. Tell me about the gap then that the dentists are trying to fill, and that's a pun totally intended there.
The dentists have the opportunity to fill a big part of the gap because there are 20 times more general dentists out there than there are orthodontists. So by having 20 times more dentists, that helps solve the geographic barrier. When you have a lot more providers, that also helps drive down costs, because when there's scarcity, you have higher fees. So in those two ways, the general dentist can solve a big part of the problem. You might wonder, well, why don't all the dentists just do the orthodontics? The trouble is that a go-alone dentist, somebody without orthodontic education in the form of a 3-year residency, doesn't have the education, the knowledge, or the experience, and so the outcomes aren't going to be predictable, and they're not going to be nearly at the same level as an orthodontist. So I'll put it this way. In general dentistry education, the 4 years of dental school, there's a paucity of orthodontic education, hands-on experience, let alone knowing some of the workflows and business optimization that go along with adding orthodontics to your business. So they solve it using OrthoBrain, because OrthoBrain essentially puts a virtual orthodontist alongside the general dentist.
So let's step out of the dental chair for a minute and talk tech. How did you, a busy dental professional, go about developing a technology platform to support your idea?
First, let me say, I didn't. I had a lot of help. and I think as I learned about using technology to solve problems, what I found is that you needed to have about a 10 times improvement in efficiency and productivity when you add a new technology. That's what's required for that sea change. And in our system, orthodontic specialists are leveraged at 25 times more than in the traditional delivery of orthodontics. So an orthodontist in a bricks and mortar environment can deliver orthodontics to about 300 new people a year. Whereas using our system, the OrthoBrain orthodontist can oversee about 500 dentists that are delivering 7,500 new starts a year. So in order to do that, you've got to have a proprietary technology. Well, did it have to be proprietary? The answer is yes. And how did I know how to go about it? And that is that I actually began writing code in the 80s, in the mid 80s. So I wrote code in order to run my dental school practice in 1981 using an Atari computer with a cassette tape. And then in 85, I wrote software to manage an orthodontic practice at a basic level called a minimum viable product. And then during my orthodontic career as a private practitioner, I was hired by some of the major players in the software industry to help them design and develop orthodontic management programs. So I've had my hands on the technology all through my career. The truth, though, is I'm a much better visionary than I am a coder. So as a visionary, I can solve problems, and one of the ways I was able to solve the technology problem was find something that worked well, find out who wrote it, and then hire them to start our platform. And that's exactly what I did. And I found really that we needed to have, Freddie, we had to have a proprietary and custom software in order to be able to make it easy for our clients to use. And at the same time, it has served as a moat around our company so that it isn't so easily replicated.
So along with the proprietary tech, I mean, your solution's a little bit different from traditional tech platforms because it has that service component. Can you tell us a little bit more about like your holistic solution to supporting your clients?
Yes. And I think it's a huge differentiator between our company and others that are in the industry. So you have big players Some of the names are going to be familiar to our audience, where they sell aligners, and you have other companies that sell braces packages. What we found is that the general dentist, can't succeed at a high level. They can't be profitable because they're missing all of the other elements. They're missing the education, they're missing the support, they're missing that ability to connect with true experts in real time. Well, how does that fit into a technology platform? Because most of the questions and most of the education can all be delivered in snackable portions of education through video. So we're able to use the digital education platform in order to get that information into the hands of our dentists. The dentists, no matter how many weekend courses they take, they can't become an orthodontist in terms of the knowledge base. In other words, you can't take a USB and plug it in from my head to somebody else's head and download all that information in less than 3 years of 2,000 hours of study per year. That's not going to happen. I'm not a good enough educator in order to do that. However, we can take our orthodontic experts at orthobrain, and they're able, using an operationalized system, to create a diagnosis, a treatment plan, and a recipe for success, so the dentist can take the patient from the very beginning to the very end. And associated with all that is developing the business optimization, the digital workflows, all the office workflows that are needed, including talk tracks for the staff when they're communicating with patients, and how to schedule the patients. So there's a whole lot of that. Of course, most of it is being put into our learning management program, our learning management system. But I'll tell you, Freddie, that there's probably, for the foreseeable future, there's going to be this thin layer of human intelligence that surrounds our SaaS model.
So you've got the industry expertise down, software development covered by a little bit of dabbling that you've done, and then strategic hiring, business acumen secured. You've got processes in place. What other skills did you need to sharpen, or maybe you personally need to sharpen, in order to move into tech entrepreneurship and to be a tech founder?
Excellent question. I don't have all the answers. I don't have a lot of the answers. Here's what I learned is it all came from a really big hit movie back in the 70s. There was this guy named Rocky. And Rocky, one day on a date, asked his girlfriend, whom he marries, he says, she wants to know, what do you see in me? How do we work together as a couple? And what it is that Rocky said, well, we fill gaps. Each one of them has their strong suits, and together they fill gaps. So one of the terms, right people, right seat, I fill gaps. I'm looking for people that are smarter than me and that have skills that I don't have. And you have to have the right support in terms of legal, accounting. And I lean on my Vistage group. It's a group of business owners, CEOs, presidents, and we have a chair, and we meet regularly, and we help each other solve our problems. A big learning from going through all this is that you have to have this ability to rethink what you're doing. That you have to be able to change positions and change your opinion based on how the market is responding, how the environment is changing, and being able to pivot. That you can get into trouble if you have a plan, you dig in, and you're not willing to change based on what you're seeing. So that open-mindedness, you have to be stubborn and persistent in order to succeed as a founder, because there's so many challenges and speed bumps along the way. But on the other hand, you need that other attribute to be able to rethink what you're doing and be able to change. And one advantage you have as a startup or as an early emerging company is you can be more nimble. You're not a glacier. You're not a giant. We're not a giant publicly traded company where it takes a long time to make a change. So those were some of the skills and ways that I went about solving it.
So nimble, being able to pivot, being flexible, but also having that vision in mind of where you want it to go. Let's talk about some other adjectives, because I feel like orthodontics, you're a skilled orthodontist. That's got to be a pretty secure profession to be in. Entrepreneurship, a little bit more risk involved. Some would say you might be crazy or at least courageous to jump from an established orthodontics practice into tech entrepreneurship. So did you have doubts along the way?
I'll add to what you said. In order to do this at my age, my position in life and the position of my career, it was beyond being a little bit crazy. You also have to have that ability to take risk. And so I think that was part of it. And as I did that, it was crazy because financially, things were terrific. Being an orthodontist is enriching in many ways. You get great remuneration and you also change lives for good. But financially, it was a very good situation that I was in. I had basically a symphony of efficiency, consistency, excellence, and profitability in my practice. And all the systems were working. I had built that practice over 30 years. So I gave up a great and comfortable lifestyle in order to be able to do this. And rather than have doubts, I've just had passion and constant energy, focused energy, so that I could fulfill this dream of when I check out of this world, that it's a little bit better than it was before I came in. And that I felt that I had the skills in order to be part of the solution to transform the way healthcare is delivered so that we do increase access and do increase affordability to people and give folks the ability to have every opportunity that I have had. And in great part, I use my smile. I replace the doubt with passion and also with confidence. And I think that there's good reason to have confidence, not so much in me. I have had an ability to attract very talented people in my life throughout my business career and the different businesses that I've been in. But I believe that we're in the right industry at the right time with the right model, that I've got the right product, and most importantly, I've got the right people that are driving us forward.
Your passion for this just absolutely shines through, and I think that is really an integral part of being the leader of a startup, being a tech founder. Is if you don't care about it all the time, then it can be tough to attack it with such vigor that you need to day after day. What do you think for you is the best part about leading OrthoBrain?
The best part about leading OrthoBrain has been the best part of my career from the time I've had people that have worked with me and for me. And I take great joy and find great fulfillment in seeing other members of the team develop skills, have accomplishments, achievements that they never even were able to dream were possible. And when they can reach places that they always thought were beyond their reach, then I find that incredibly fulfilling. And it's a pretty simple answer. I think that really sums it up. That's where I get the fulfillment.
Tell us a little bit more about that team.
So we are being led by Kimberly Harrington. She is formally a global VP for a publicly traded dental company. And so she has vast experience in our industry at a global level. So she's able to open a lot of doors and make great connections for us, but she also has these fabulous leadership skills where she's able to bring out the very best in people. We have Andrew Flygore, who was a business owner. He was a chief information officer. He's leading our technology and is also an excellent leader. And Jody Rodney, who's working as a senior vice president for our company. She also had a global position. She led the marketing department for a global company in the dental industry. So we've got some really talented leaders. And in the field, we have Dee Holloman, who is probably one of the most accomplished, if not the most accomplished trainer or educator when it comes to helping dentists learn how to work with aligners and braces. And she's been doing this for 20 some years. So from A to Z, from side to side, we've got incredible talent. And I believe that is our single best asset.
Talent is extremely important when you're just starting out, making sure you have the right people in the right places, being able to flex their muscles in their areas of expertise. But it's not the only thing. money is very important as well when you're launching a startup. And you and your team just, first of all, congratulations. But you and your team just raised a $9 million round. I don't know if the fundraising fatigue has worn off yet, if you're if you're ready to talk about that, but tell me about what that experience was like in raising that round for OrthoBrain.
So it's a great segue from the team into the funding, because the two of them are so woven together. I really believe that the team made us very appealing, and I really almost regret mentioning any names because there are 31 people that are working in the company, and each one of them is a critical piece of the puzzle. And I definitely would prefer to be able to list everybody and tell you how wonderful each one of them are. So the capital raise has really been an eye-opening experience for me. Since we're now such good friends, I'd like to tell you, Freddie, that I really thought I was going to self-fund this company until we became a global empire. And so I did that the first couple of years and finally took some good advice and decided that I should reach out to some angel investors. And that was one of the best moves that we did. Not so much because we needed their money, that was important, but each one of them that we invited in to be an angel investor was able to contribute to the company in a really powerful way. What was a little bit ticklish about the whole thing was they said yes, they were going to invest in the company, and then all of a sudden it was almost exactly the time that COVID shut down our country, and specifically dental offices were all closed. Our angel investors had to go and tend to their own businesses, and so everything went on pause. All of a sudden there were no investors. And I'd say sometime in the late spring, early summer, when they had their companies back in order, then they came back and those local angels funded us, and they gave me a lot of support. That pause in business really opened up opportunities for us. And some of those opportunities were so big and our team was so small, Freddie, that I couldn't capital raise and take on these new accounts. We had publicly traded company and other large billion-dollar companies reaching out to us to partner with them. And we had a very, very small team. And so I had to put aside the capital raise and bring these new accounts in. And so it really made the whole capital raise a lot more probably challenging than it ordinarily would have been. And it also took a lot more time. Also remember that I didn't have the opportunity to have those in-person meetings with some of the folks that would be able to fund us at the level that we needed. So it's been quite, it's its own little mini series, what it was like to fund the company over the past couple of years.
So, but the funding did happen. And how are you going to use that to scale the business from here?
What we're going to do, and what we've started to do, is we're adding more in our technology. So this AI is really helping us so that we can scale our education, scale our clinical services, get our marketing out there. We're really working to expand our footprint in North America and globally.
I don't know how I want to phrase this, because I know that especially your fundraising experience was certainly unique because of COVID and things like that, but it's still a process, and meeting with different VCs and pitching the company and that sort of thing. And you didn't come from the VC world. So what did you learn from this experience, from that fundraising experience, that you didn't already know?
One of the things that I didn't realize is that as people are looking at investing in your company, they're looking at you differently based on what the end game is. If you're building a lifestyle company, there's probably one way that people view your company. When you're talking about building a global, gigantic enterprise that we've been contemplating and that we're building, they look at you in a different way. And I didn't have any experience in that. So in the past, I think most of the lenders that I used for my previous businesses, they were looking at the business itself, and they were looking primarily at me. Did they have the confidence that I was going to be able to do this? And when you're looking at a company that we're building, I know that they look at the management team and they want to understand how you're operating the company and how you're thinking about the move forward. What are your contingencies for another black swan landing? So things that I've really focused on is avoiding what I call diversification. Diversification is where you think you can be an expert in a lot of things. So I try and stay in my zone, in my area of expertise. I also learned that if you confuse, you lose. You have to have clarity in defining the problem, clarity in the way that you're going to solve it, and also make sure that you have a really intuitive client interface. If I could give myself some advice or give others advice, I'd like to always have this little person on my shoulder called a chief simplification officer to remind me, make things simple. Visionaries, we tend to go in a lot of different directions, and the simplicity is really a beautiful thing. And we all know of companies that have kept things very simple and been wildly successful.
Outstanding advice. I think that is a new C-suite position that a lot of entrepreneurs might want to have when they start growing their executive teams. Your story through the fundraising round, at least the way that I'm hearing it, seems smoother than many. Were you told no from VCs? Did you have pitches that didn't go the way that you wanted? And if so, how did you let those no's play into your success?
I feel that I was really well prepared for no's because I had so many early in my life. And that really made it much more tolerable. I remember all the way back in second grade, at the parent-teacher conference, the teacher telling my parents, your son, cute kid, not going to college, doesn't have the ability. Training for the bar mitzvah, the rabbi says, I don't think he's going to be able to do this. The kid can't learn. He has some learning problems. The first time I applied to dental school for their accelerated program, no thank you, I didn't make it. I ignored it, and every time I got one of those no's, it made me work so much harder, more passionate, that I was going to prove them wrong. And to this day, I remember the name of the teachers, I remember the name of the people who told me no, that I couldn't do it, and that is probably the biggest incentive that I ever get. Those no's are the actual rocket fuel to make me better, to work harder, and to finish on top. And it worked in this case as well. I know that some of the no's caused us to rework our presentations and our story, and it made us a much better company. And so ultimately, we got the yes. I got the yes for the funding. I got the yes from my wife. I got that one. Yes. I got the yes in the dental school. I got the yes for being a super achiever in academics and winning all kinds of awards. So it's those no's that are really what I consider rocket fuel and fan the flames of my desire to really perform better than anybody ever thought I could.
Simplification officer on this shoulder, and then it's the chip on this shoulder.
Exactly. I think it helps having a competitive nature. And so that part was not difficult for me to swallow. I think a difficult part is instead of getting a no, you get silence. That was a little bit and that part I haven't been sensitized. Remember, I come from a doctoring background. So in the doctoring world, we're caring, nurturing, loving, hugging, hand-holding kind of people. And the world of private equity and venture capital, it's really not that. So I have to work on changing hats and having the appropriate disposition at the right time. But for the most part,
when you're in a pitch meeting or you're meeting with VCs, hopefully most of the time you're not met with silence. A lot of times you're met with opinions, you're met with advice. What's the best advice that you've received in a meeting with a VC?
The best advice is really quite simple. Prove your model before you run out of money. Don't run out of money, because it's the number one reason why companies have the opposite of success. And get $1 of value out of every dollar you spend while you're proving your model. How does that sound? Pretty clear message.
That sounds great. Yes. Again, simple, and that's really good. I've got to imagine that while you're building, this idea and you're working in this company, you're kind of splitting time. How many hours a week were you working as an orthodontist, and how many hours a week, or are you working as an orthodontist, and how many hours a week are you working as a tech founder? And my purpose of this question is I kind of want to dive into the busyness and the balance, of being a tech CEO and that sort of thing. Are you still actively practicing? Is it only orthobrain now? How's that all working out?
Yeah, I have a standard question. When you have white hair like I do and you sell your orthodontic practice, everybody assumes that you're retired, and they say, hey, how is it being retired? I said, well, I'm not really retired. I only work half time now. And they say, oh, that's great. I say, yeah, about 12 hours a day. And that is the reality of what I do. We live, breathe, and think orthobrain all the time. It is so difficult to get it out of the mind that it takes special coping strategies just to try and stop thinking about it, because it's around the clock. And it became heightened. You would think that since we've gone from a small handful of people a year ago to 31 people working in the company basically full time now, that I'd be able to breathe. And now that we have $9 million in our bank account, I'd be able to breathe and take it easy. But no, it's even more intense, Freddie, because now I'm the steward of other people's money. When I was the one that was funding the company, there wasn't the same pressure that I feel now that I'm responsible for other people's money. So it is always on my mind. When you say, what kind of balance do you have? It's very heavily weighted towards orthobrain in my career right now.
Well, the old anecdote is that, when you become a startup founder, you go from working a 9 to 5 to a 5 to 9.
Right.
So how do you keep yourself grounded? What do you do to kind of, relax and take a little time off when you get the opportunity?
The cliche answer is, it's my family. I know that's what I'm supposed to say. That's what everybody says, I'm guessing. But here, I need more than that. I'm incredibly blessed. We have 7 children, and 2 of the kids are married, and they have grandchildren, and it's fantastic. But I need physical reminders, Freddie. I have to see and feel something. So as folks are watching this, you can see that I have a very special bow tie. I have a bow tie on my bow tie. So my 7-year-old granddaughter, Gwen, whom everybody adores, and she happens to like me. She adores me as well. One day she comes over and she says, Zadie, which is the Yiddish word for grandpa, I bought you a present. And she bought me this little tiny bow tie to put on my bow tie, because I am typically true to our brand, and this is what I look like to the kids most of the time. So ever since she gave me that, Freddie, I've been wearing this little bow tie. And so when I'm doing meetings and interviews and Zooms, and I look in the mirror, I always have my family right in front of me, because I've got a physical reminder. And then when I'm thinking about how big the world is outside of orthobrain, I might get a glimpse of the yarmulke, the kippah that I wear on my head. So the Jewish faith offers the Sabbath, and for the Sabbath, every week I unplug for a solid day. It's 26 hours unplugged, and that allows me to recharge. And part of that faith is having humility and developing purpose in life, and also realizing there are boundaries on what I can control. I have one other secret, because all those things sound really good, but they don't always work. Sometimes it's just not enough. I have one solution that works every time, and that is to engage in something that requires 100% total focus, that's not called Founders Unfiltered interview. I'm talking about something outside of work, and that would be having total focus on something very challenging physically. So I like to mountain bike, and if you're riding your mountain bike through single track trail, that means it's about as wide as your handlebars. If you think about anything other than what you're doing, you're going over the handlebars or you're going to kiss a tree. Same thing with snow skiing between the trees. You can't think about anything except where is the air, and make sure that I keep skiing towards the air and not towards the trees. And if I can't do those things, I love love physical activity and moving. And so I will exercise myself until I'm a wet noodle, and then I'm at peace. What happens if I'm injured? Then I rely on self-hypnosis and meditation. So I have this entire tackle box filled with all these different options on how to try and get a little bit of relief. But full disclosure, it's just a small part of my life. I mean, it's, for the most part, it is orthobrain.
I love it. I mean, no disrespect to anybody else that I've had on this show over the last 6 months, but I have to say, Dr. Gurman, that I think you're probably one of the nicest people I've ever had the opportunity to interview. How do you stay positive when the times get tough? And that's kind of a rehash of the last question, and maybe the answer is the same, but how do you keep that positive attitude?
It's really a different answer. I'm inspired by very, very strong role models who have that disposition, and I realized how contagious it is. If I have self-doubt, if I start to get it, call it the imposter syndrome, I remind myself that founders tend to be really bold people, and I remind myself that I would rather experience the opposite of success than to never play on the field. In other words, if you don't ever enter the game, you can never lose, but you can't win. I'm in the arena. I'm willing to take the chances. I'm willing to be in the spotlight. A lot of people have great ideas, probably a lot better ideas than I come up with. The difference is that I'm willing to take it to market, and I'm willing to stick my neck out and move forward with this. And I admire all people that get on the playing field. If I'm discouraged, I might take a look at some of the positive notes that people frequently send me. I get them from team members, I get them from clients, and I can look at the old notes from my patients. And then I have to realize something that is very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. And that is that it's all for good. Whatever is happening in my life, it's always been for good. And it might look really bad on the surface. So we're talking about this concept that not all good is revealed. Let's give you an example. How do you say that there's any good from COVID? It's horrible. It has destroyed so many families and lives, from mental health to actually being able to sustain life. And of course, we've suffered in our own family. What happened to OrthoBrain? It kickstarted our company, because when COVID shut everybody down, it gave the CEOs and the leadership team of other companies the opportunity to think long-term strategy, and they reached out and they partnered with us. Fantastic. What happened when I suffered with COVID and I got it the day that I could have been vaccinated as a doctor? It shut me down from being able to interact with other people, including my own family. So I just basically lived in my bedroom with 7 computer screens up, and I could work morning, noon, and night. Fortunately, it didn't affect my brain or my heart or my lungs. And so COVID really opened up a lot of doors. I wish it had never happened. Never, ever happened. But this idea, and I can say it because I'm one who suffered from it, is that whatever is going on is for good, and eventually it will be revealed. And so keep looking forward. I spend as little time in the rearview mirror as possible, take the learnings, and then start looking through the windshield and going forward.
You've given us some really great nuggets of advice throughout this conversation. I'm going to ask you for one more. If you could go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, or even before that, and talk to a younger Dr. Daniel Gurman, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't be a lone wolf. Don't run on your own. I did that with my practice. I probably went 15 years before I ever talked to an expert, a consultant, and had anybody support me in the practice at that level. And I should have and could have done a better job with OrthoBrain had I embraced all the local resources. It wasn't out of arrogance. I think it's just the way I've been wired naturally as an introvert, and as somebody who is a self-study type person. I like to learn on my own. I'm just independent. And so I don't normally naturally gravitate to look outside of myself to figure out how to solve problems. But there are so many wonderful resources in Cleveland. When you think about Jumpstart, Bounce, Jobs Ohio, there are angel investors that have had success, and they want to share their wealth to help fund your company, but they also can give you advice and coaching. My alma mater, Case Western Reserve University, has resources. Ventures of America has talent to help us with. There's so much out there. There are so many people that want us to succeed as founders and as new companies in Ohio, that start with them rather than look back and say, wow, I should have started earlier. I don't think anybody ever says I had too much expert support and that was my downfall. I should have just figured it all out on my own. Why would I want to find out how to avoid falling in avoidable holes? And even at this mature age of mine, I was too slow to reach out for that type of help.
I think there's no better place for us to take a pause than on that excellent commercial for all the great resources in Northeast Ohio. So let's do that now. We'll take a little break so that I can give you a commercial, and we'll be right back with Dr. Daniel Gurman. Thanks again for joining us today for Founders Unfiltered. I want to take just a quick moment here to tell you about an exciting new program that Jumpstart has for tech startups called Sales Ignition. Sales Ignition is a 5-week program designed for B2B SaaS companies that are looking for a hands-on learning experience where you'll actively generate sales leads and streamline your sales process. This is a roll-up-your-sleeves type of program that focuses on acquiring leads, converting them into opportunities, closing new customers, executing successful client engagement, communicating success metrics. Eligible candidates for the program are highly motivated software companies in Ohio with at least one customer, and the company must have done basic market validation, identified and measured a problem, quantified the pain the problem creates, and compiled some evidence that solving the problem will produce an ROI. You can learn more about and apply to the Sales Ignition program right now by visiting jumpstartinc.org/ignition. Now let's get back to Dr. Dan Gurman. Okay, welcome back to Founders Unfiltered. We're here with Dr. Daniel Gurman of orthobrain, and it is time for our Founders Fast 5, our lightning round. Dr. Gurman, here's how this is going to go. I'm going to ask you 6 questions. You've got to answer 5 of them, so you get 1 pass. And if you answer all 6 questions, you win a prize, and I don't know what the prize is, so I'm going to say it's some Colgate Optic White. No, that's a prop that I brought along too. All right, so question number 1. What is the weirdest advice you've received from an advisor?
Weirdest advice I have received from an advisor: change the name and logo of our company.
That is weird advice. Was that before orthobrain, or was they were telling you to change orthobrain?
There was a person who didn't like the logo or the name orthobrain, and it happens to be wildly profitable. Remember, we're a B2B, we're a business to business, so I feel really good about it.
Well, I was last month when I promoted this month, I did say that it's the coolest sounding company I know of. So props. I would not tell you to do that. Question number 2: if you could publish a book, what would it be about? And orthodontics doesn't count. It can't be any sort of dentistry or anything like that.
I would publish a book on people developing conscious incompetence so that they can rethink their position on a variety of topics, whether it's politics or it's relationships, to rethink and revisit the way you approach the world. So many people that I meet, they have a position, they have a party they support, they have an opinion, and once they form it, it's so hard for people to change. And that inflexibility, I think, leads to a lot of trouble in people's lives and also on a more global stage.
That was a much deeper answer than I was expecting. I love it. So you mentioned earlier you have 7 children. Bless you. Okay, which one of your kids is your favorite?
You can ask them, and everybody knows who the favorite is. If you ask Julia, she'll tell you Julia. If you ask Laura, she will tell you Laura. If you ask Ethan, he'll tell you Ethan. Aaron will say Aaron. Eden will say Eden. Mira will say Mira. And Ezra will say Ezra. And then, of course, it's the same with the grandchildren, that we definitely play favorites. Whoever is closest to me and whoever is in front of me is my favorite person in the world. I think that the world is, people are lacking attunement. When they're with each other, they're not really with each other. And so it's one of the attributes that I'm really trying to refine of my own, is to make the person that's in front of me my favorite person in the world.
That's another excellent nugget of advice. I've got 3 daughters, and I always tell the 3 of them when they're together, I say, well, 2 of you are my favorite, but I never say which 2. I just like to keep them on their toes. What did you want to be when you were a kid?
I wanted to play football at Ohio State. Then I was going to play football for the Cleveland Browns. And then I was going to be the coach of the Cleveland Browns. If I ever retired from doing that, then I was going to go to medical school or dental school and become the team doctor for the Ohio State University Buckeyes. Nice try. It was a nice try. I gave it my all, Freddie.
Well, you know, some dreams can just stay dreams, I guess. Is startup culture addictive?
It is 100% addictive. Once you taste it, I don't know how you ever get out of it. It's such a thrill. It's such a wonderful adrenaline rush as you achieve success and you hit milestones and you watch how you impact lives, and a light bulb goes off and people say, wow, there's a different way to do something. This organization solves it. It gives you purpose, and it really validates all the work that you put in prior to starting the company.
Last question. I think you're going to run the gauntlet here. What was the best decision you have ever made?
Best decision I ever made, I would say that was getting married and creating a big family. That I really find that outside of my professional career, having a wife, Terry, who is sharing that same passion for having a big family that is really coherent and close, and that we do things that are so old-fashioned. Freddie, we actually eat dinner together. We actually, every Friday night, put the fancy stuff on the table and have a fancy meal every Friday night. Most of us live in the same city, so there's a closeness of the family that is really old school, and I love it, and I know my wife Terry loves it, and I'm so incredibly grateful that she shares that value with me, because it just makes this journey so much better.
Well, you've done it. You're through all 6 questions. You answered all of them. Congratulations there. I want to say, speaking of grateful, I am exceedingly grateful that you took the opportunity to join us today. I really appreciate your authenticity and your positivity, and this has been just the treat of my day. And again, thank you, Dr. Grimman, for joining us. Any parting words?
Well, I'm very grateful to Jumpstart for all the support that they give me, they continue to give me, and also for the opportunity to do this. My personal mission every day is, when I meet with somebody else, I want to be the highlight of their day. I want to be the best part of their day. And I'm going to tell you, Freddie, this has been the best part of my day. I've really enjoyed the time together, and thank you for asking such thoughtful questions.
Well, I certainly appreciate it again, and thank you again for joining us. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to Founders Unfiltered today. And just to remind you that Jumpstart combines capital, services, and connections to help entrepreneurs grow, and we are here and ready to help. You can learn more about Jumpstart on our website at jumpstartinc.org, or start your entrepreneurial journey today at jumpstartinc.org/apply. Thanks again. We hope you have a great day.